Oh, a lot of movement by Gujarat there. Very interesting batting effort. There was a lot of flailing limbs. It looked like there was some movement. Then they were stuck. Then some more movement. But at the end of the day, after all that excitement, they have managed to reach 143 for the loss of 8 wickets in their 20 overs. Just one shining star for Gujarat, the young Sai Sudarshan, 64 not out of 50. And really not much support for him. Besides that, he's done the bulk of the scoring there for his team. Kagiso Rabada on the other side, picking up 4 wickets for 33 and a wicket apiece, Liam Livingstone and Rashid Dhawan. I'm Gaurav Kapur. This is Cricbuzz Live. I have with me Shaun Pollock and Lisa Sthalekar. Lisa, well, when we came at the halfway mark, looking at 60-odd for 3, I think from that point, 143, you'd say that Gujarat would take that.
Yeah, they'd absolutely take it. And I think it seems to be a pitch that's a little bit harder, or they just weren't able to get going in the middle overs. That's what really cost them. And you get a sense that if they pick up a couple of early wickets, it might mean that they're in the hunt. It depends on if there's any dew or anything that will come into it. But given where they were, you've got to take it, don't you? Now you've just got to defend.
Yeah, it was a very strange batting effort, wasn't it, Polly? In somewhere in the middle, I think it went about 47 balls without a boundary. I think from the power play into almost 11, 12, over 12 or something. It looked like they were really just wanting to launch, but the conditions and the Punjab bowlers were not allowing them. And somehow the senior batters couldn't adapt to that change of momentum.
Yeah, I think if you look at Sudarshan, I think his performance is exactly what they'd ever want from him. I think his role in the side is if we lose early wickets, you need to stick around and sort of rebuild. I don't think he's a massive hitter from what we watched there today. He's not going to be one of those guys who are going to clear the boundary. So if they get off to a good start, I'm sure he's the one who slides down and the other guys get promoted. So he actually did his part. But yeah, none of the senior big ball hitters managed to get going, and that was the case in point, and that's why it almost felt like they didn't fire any shots. I mean, don't see T20 games where 47 deliveries are bowled and there's no boundary that's struck. So I think there's also going to have to be a change of game plan. I think teams are going to start analysing and working out a slightly different approach with regards to surfaces. I think it's going to change at the back end of this tournament where balls are going to be holding up and just standing and delivering won't be the case in point where it's going to be successful. So they're going to have to maybe really gauge what surfaces are doing and adjust how they play and maybe come up with some different options.
But if you look at, if you just look at a couple of the wickets and dismissals, firstly a run out at the top, and then you look at Hardik and Rashid Khan, just did not move their feet at all, played away from their body, simple dismissals in that sense. So yes, the surface wasn't as easy as they would have liked, but then you've also got to be able to adjust. You can't just stand still and hit through the line like some pitches, Vankedi as an example. So they're going to have to be able to adapt, and that means good footwork and getting in good, correct positions as well.
But that's what top teams do, don't they? They look at how the road is and then they drive in the gear that the road demands, right? I mean, so far, Polly, what's happened is that all of the surfaces, predominantly the surfaces have been, you kind of stand and just tee off, right? And it's flying. But today, on a ground which only allowed them 2 sixes in the entire innings, that's right, just 2 sixes in the entire innings, they somehow didn't show that they could adapt to it quick enough, besides the one guy we're talking about, which is Sai Sudarshan.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset as well. You know, you often get to a tournament and you play your initial innings and you just think, well, this is the way it's going to be for the rest of the tournament. I can just walk in, stand and deliver. And I think you can't say anything to the groundsman too. I mean, it's been really tough work. The amount of games that have been played at each stadium, the turnaround time, the amount of days they've got to repair something else is not easy. So I would expect it to be turning and gripping. And maybe when you get to the playoffs, things will go back to normal because of the change of venues for the eliminators and the qualifiers and all those things. But I think in this next 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be difficult at times. I think you're going to get certain surfaces where guys are going to think, gee, 140 is really competitive, 150 is really competitive, and 165 is basically banked on win. So it is going to be, and that's where I think management have to have to just put that thought process into their players' minds about, come on, guys, we've got to maybe just adjust our tactics. It's maybe a case in point where you've got to spend a little bit more time at the crease before you can take your aggressive, positive options, and just tinker with things slightly.
Polly, just a quick thing, because I remember that for the Knight Riders, Joy, Gotham both have mentioned that Callis used to be their person who, in the first over, in 2-3 balls, could just read the pitch and tell you what's the pass score, right? I don't know if in Mumbai, did you have a player like that as well?
We didn't really. I think Sachin, when I was there, was often the guy who would work things out. I mean, the amount of cricket he had played on the different pitches around India was always vital, where he would send a message. But usually after 5 or 6 overs, you would get a feeling and a message sent back that call for gloves. And you get some, oh no, the wicket's holding a little bit, oh no, it's coming on really nicely, it's a bit of a belter. And I think those are important conversations that need to take place, because guys walking to the crease need to be under the right illusion as what they're going to get when they get to start their innings. And sometimes different personnel too play on different surfaces better. That's one wickets that are stopping and turning. It might be the Indian guys who've grown up on those pitches rather than, say, someone like a David Miller who comes from South Africa and used to just standing and hitting through the line. So that might also be tinkered with as well.
Lisa, for Sai Sudarshan, let's just stay on him for a second. 5 boundaries. It was a slow start. It looked like he was getting trouble. There were a few mighty heave-hoes, but in the end, he's done the job for the team. Stayed not out as well.
Yeah, they needed someone, didn't they, to kind of bat from their top order to bat all the way through. They just needed one more person to go with him, and that 140 odd would have been 150, closer to 160. But he looked good. I mean, he did so well in the Tamil Nadu competition, so a bit of pressure coming into the IPL. Will he be able to strike it like he was in that competition? So I think his innings was required. It was almost a very tempered type of innings. He realized that he couldn't go from ball one. He had to kind of find the gaps and build his innings that way. And maybe his game plan was a little bit more suited for the conditions than a David Miller or a Tawatia.
Yeah, you have a look at David Miller and Tawatia very rarely, and we were talking about how good both Miller and Tawatia have been, how good 5, 6, 7 have been today. Well, 5, 6, 7 have given you 23 runs from 27, 28 balls. So, you feel the pinch of something like that happening. But, as Gujarat said, they can afford to take a risk right now just by virtue of how well they've gone in the competition so far. They won 8 out of 9, which is why they could do something like win the toss and bat first. That's what they did today. And, we're speaking this way, but 143, Polly, in these conditions, considering the Punjab batting is under the pump, they've had a few kind of collapses. It's not a bad score. It's not game over.
No, they're not out of it at all. I definitely think it could be more competitive than we even think here on the show at the moment. Particularly after the first 6 overs, you're able to tell what start Punjab get off to, whether they get off to a flyer and take the run rate pressure off their shoulders or not. I just think also with regards to the surfaces, the batters should have a good understanding, having been on there for 20 overs, of what you're going to be the right deliveries and whether the cutting or gripping or what's going to do. But Hardik Pandya didn't look upset, did he? I mean, when they flashed to him in the dugout, there was 2 reactions I was very surprised by. His, first of all, because he kept smiling. Whenever they were on him, he was smiling as though, well, I'm not too concerned. This seems okay. And then the other one was Kahisa Rabada. I think someone said something to him, because every time he got a wicket, he didn't even celebrate. He just turned around and sort of walked back to his mark as if to say, okay, I'm here to do my job. I'm doing it. So that was a bit surprising, particularly. I mean, 4 for 33, once again showing how he has that knack. I mean, he's often not the most economical bowler around, but he just has that knack whenever he comes on of being able to pick up a wicket.
Polly, maybe it's he only reacts when he gets Australians out, because every time we play him, like, there is that much fire in the belly when he gets a wicket. He's quite happy to kind of rub shoulders with the batter and do what he needs to do to get in their faces.
Well, Australians know to rub people up the wrong way, It's just
there she is, just sitting, minding her own business. And hey, listen, but by the way, Polly, I've got to side with Lisa today because she's in my hemisphere now. She was in the Southern Hemisphere till the last time we did the show, but today she's in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're 2 versus 1. All right.
That's
Come on,
fine.
bro.
So stick with me, Gaurav. Come on.
I'm with you. I'm with you. The tide is a turning. Is the tide going to turn for Punjab today? Well, just a word on the bowler rotation for Mayank Agarwal, Lisa. He did well. Look, the bowlers have responded, right? If you look at it, for anybody else, if your key spinner, which Rahul Chahar goes off, if he gets the other day we saw it when Washington Sundar walked off and Kane Williamson was just behind the 8 ball. You're chasing your tail because you've lost 4 overs there. He got Liam Livingstone to do the job, but up front, Sandeep Sharma, 4 of 17. You get Rishi Dhawan, 4 of 26. Arshdeep obviously has been doing the job always. Rabada gets you wickets. But these 2 were so important along with Livingstone today.
Yeah, you need other players to step up, and Sandeep Sharma. I mean, we've got to credit the 15 dot balls. I mean, that's just unheard of in T20 cricket. And I wish, from maybe a fantasy points or even a recognition as well of an award of the most dots bowled in the IPL, there should be some cap for that because they are crucial because it builds enough pressure and other people pick up wickets. So Mayank Agarwal was able to turn to other people and they certainly lifted.
Lisa, what about if we go for like in the Tour de France, we go for the dotted cap?
Oh, yeah.
For the person who's got the most dots. There we go.
Well, there you go.
I like it.
We can have that. It's probably not very comfortable to wear, but
no, it's just the color of it is just, I don't know, white and pink polka dot dots. And then it stands up. The guy who bowled the most dots in the RPL, because that is an achievement in itself. But I think the thing about him that impresses me is there's not massive amount of variation. And, over the years, you hear all these coaches come in and say, oh, no, he doesn't have enough slow balls, or there's not this to his bowling, or there's no X factor here. But he just gets on every RPL. He comes in, and invariably out of 6 out of 10 matches, he does a fantastic job. So all credit to him.
Well, good bowling effort now. Mayank has got Gujarat. They'll be very happy. Of course, Punjab will be very happy to take 143. Gujarat will be very happy to take 143 after where they were at the halfway mark. But all in all, Punjab will look at this total and say, all right, keep calm. Keep your heads down. Nothing flashy. Nothing fancy. Let's just get the job done. Get the 2 points in the bag, Lisa.
Yeah, very important to get 2 points today because otherwise it almost becomes starting to get really difficult for them. Whether they change the batting order to accommodate that, whether they try different things.
They have.
Right.
They have. You got Johnny Bairstow walking out to open.
Wow, okay.
There you go.
Bairstow and Shikhar Dhawan.
Right up top. That's interesting. That's super interesting. Yeah. Well, there you go. They're doing it.
I mean, he's the kind of guy who can strike it as well as anyone really up top. So whether he bats 2 or 3, I think Mayank just gives himself a slide down. It takes a little bit of pressure off him. And then he can come in and sort of play the situation of the game just until you find form. Maybe by the back end of the tournament, he's back up and running. I think just Gujarat Titans will be thinking to themselves with everything that's unfolded with Punjab this season, over all the seasons, take it deep. I know sometimes that word is overused, take it deep. Yeah. But if they can just squeeze them and get them down to 19th, 20th over, that's when Punjab will start to doubt themselves a touch.
And that's where Gujarat will get confident because they've won a few. They've done a few highs in the 20th over. They've done 2 in the last ball. So, and they've done a few in the last over. So and of course, we can't forget the first encounter. This is the reverse leg, the first one against them. But that time, Gujarat, of course, was batting. Today, they're bowling. They have a solid bowling lineup. But I think the reason to also send Bairstow up, Lisa, is perhaps that you looked at Ridhiman Shah. He's the only one who looked like he could the only way to get big runs over here is perhaps in the power play because it becomes really tough after the ground slightly big as well. So 6s are few and far between. He's probably there just to utilize the power play.
Yeah, maybe he's been given the license and, he still hasn't really found his form in this competition, has he? And it's a shame because we remember fondly of what him and David Warner were able to do for Sunrisers. So maybe this might just free him up as well.
Okay. We all got our predictions horribly wrong, obviously. It was somewhere between the 110 that Polly predicted and the 167 that I'd guessed. So it was kind of somewhere in the smack in the middle, in fact, there. But what can we do with the power play here, or rather, what can Punjab do with the power play? That's our guess. Come on, we start with Lisa.
40 on the dot.
40. All right.
Okay, I'll go 47.
47. Geez, I gotta go bigger then, yeah. Or maybe a smack in the middle, 44. Nah, I'm thinking it's going to go bigger. I think Bairstow's going to have his day today. It's going to be 54.
Oof.
There you go. 40, 47, and 54.
To you.
There you go. That's what it's going to be. All right, that's all we have time for. We're going to see you at the end of the 10th over with Cricbuzz Combox. Punjab has to get to 144 to secure these 2 points, but there's quite the lineup of Gujarat bowlers standing in their way, and of course they're have confidence on their side, having won 8 out of 9. What's it going to be? Well, we don't know, but we'll be back to discuss it no matter what happens. Big thank you to Lisa and Shaun. I'm Gaurav Kapur. This was Cricbuzz Live.